Not all stories are chronological, especially when considering the tale of Quentin Tarantino. Two directors, hot off incredible careers, genre fans, creative cinematic geniuses, deja vu. These guys make exactly what you would expect from a B movie drive in spectacle. Directed by Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino, starring everyone. We are, of course, discussing 2007's box office bomb, Grindhouse. The Phantasmagorium show proudly presents Bullets, Blades, and Babes. I am Scotty R37. Catherine is on brain detail. And Steve, if you see Steve, say this. The woods are lovely, deep and dark. No, wait, dark and deep. Hang on a second. Let me do this again. If you want, you have to buy Steve a drink, and then you say this. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, and I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. Do you hear me, butterfly? Miles to go before I sleep. You'll get a lap dance, I promise. Hi, Kat. How are you?
Good.
That's great. Steve, good to have you running the board. I appreciate that. And also, just right off the hop, before we get to the double feature, thank you for my tardiness. I appreciate everyone's patience. If you're watching this on the replay, then you don't even care. But no, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for showing up. This is a really fun one for me, and so I wanted to make sure that I was properly prepared. So, yeah, I was late, but thank you. Kat, when was the first time that you saw Grindhouse?
Whenever the two films came to DVD, I think it was September 18th, 2007 was when they came out. It's funny, I opened my Planet Terror DVD for the first time in over a decade, and there was a $5 off coupon in there for if you bought Death Proof. But I bought them both at the same time, so I wouldn't have been able to take advantage of it either. And I haven't seen either of those films since probably 2009 or so.
Okay. Have you seen them in the theatrical cut?
The theatrical cut was only in theaters for 3 days up here, and
Oh wow.
they never put it out for years and years, and they only put out the separate versions. And that's apparently the same case internationally. They never put out Grindhouse as a feature because apparently Grindhouses aren't a thing anywhere else. So they just got separate releases as the extended cuts. But I'm not even sure which cut of Death Proof I watched today because the extended cut is 113 minutes, theatrical cut was 97 minutes, and the one I watched was 108 minutes. And there's a couple moments where you have like the blip where you're missing a portion of the reel, which is like deliberate to make it feel like a Grindhouse movie, but I can't account for why this is 5 minutes shorter than the extended or 11 minutes longer than the theatrical. I don't know. It's just the one that I watched.
Well, and it's interesting when just discussing Grindhouse on its Death Proof on its own, the parts that are in black and white totally redacted from the theatrical cut.
Yeah, the theatrical cut was 16 minutes shorter, whereas Planet Terror, the theatrical cut was only 8 minutes shorter, so not extended by too much.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I think that they had different intentions, Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino. I think that Robert Rodriguez knew that he was making about a 70-minute movie. And Quentin Tarantino was like, and I'm going to make a regular movie, and we'll cut around it. That was my impression. Also, if, Kat, you can give me constant updates as to how my internet is doing, that would be faboo. I don't know how choppy I am. But it is really interesting because I did see the theatrical cut in a theater twice. And it was released on an Easter weekend. And I've made this joke before, but I think it's hilarious. And a Grindhouse is not a Christian film. Although, I thought it was great. There are things in this movie revisiting, and I'm like, you didn't do that. You didn't do that. I remembered this as a nightmare, but they did that. Like when you see Marley or Dr. Block, Marley Shelton, I believe the actress's name is. And we're going to go through the cast like it's a People magazine. But when she breaks her wrist, like the kid kills him, whatever. This movie is so off the hook with insanity. And to sit down and watch it on a Good Friday, you know what? It was a pretty good Friday.
Did you watch all of the fictitious trailers with it as well?
I did, yes.
Yeah,
And in the rewatch, I did do, like I rewatched all those trailers.
yeah. For some reason, on the Planet Terror DVD is the only version that has the fictitious trailers. They didn't have them for Death Proof, and though I heard that in the theatrical version they had them in the middle, separating the two films as well. And the only ones they showed that I've seen are Machete, Thanksgiving, and that's it. I did not see Edgar Wright's, which is Don't, and I did not see Rob Zombie's Werewolf Women in the SS. But those all
starring
have,
Nicolas Cage as Fu Manchu.
and apparently in international markets they even added the fictitious trailer "Hobo with a Shotgun."
Yes.
I have seen the feature film adaptation of that, but it was okay. Probably better as a concept. Same with Machete. I thought that one was better as a short trailer concept rather than the feature film. It just didn't hold together as well for me. But I remember my favorite of the fake trailers I thought was the most hilarious was Thanksgiving by Eli Roth. I'm like, I wish that this could have been even not a feature length, even like a 40-minute or so, just like fun / it was so funny.
Well, and I suppose I should warn the audience that we're going to be discussing graphic images and adult situations, but like the Thanksgiving trailer, there's a cheerleader who's jumping up and down, topless. And then she does the splits and lands on the trampoline where the killer of the fictitious movie Thanksgiving like puts a carving knife up through and possibly upon. Anyway, bad things happen. It's a horror movie to the nth degree. And I think I agree with you very much in terms of, well, no, but that happened like that. That's a ridiculous thing to have to explain. I didn't think I had to explain that today, but it's a thing I did. And so, like, the idea of a grindhouse, and I think the trailer does it best, is it says these are movies of excessive exploitation. You are going to see things that you wouldn't normally see. This isn't The Graduate. This is gonna be gory.
I think that's true of Planet Terror, not of Death Proof.
I would like to. You know what? There's a severed leg that would like to have a word with you.
Death Proof is a very tame film for a grindhouse thing.
I like the tension and I like the villain, but we'll get there after we're done with Planet Terror.
Yeah, so both of these films take place in Austin, Texas, in this town, or part of it anyway. There's 3 films, really. There's Planet Terror, Death Proof Austin, Texas, and Death Proof Buellton, California. For some reason, they say it's Lebanon, Tennessee, but it's not Tennessee. Yeah. It's obviously Buellton, California, and it's really fucking stupid that they changed that. But
well, no, but it's sort of a commentary on filming where it's cheap and saying where you think people don't know what it looks like.
Yeah. So what were you saying? I was interrupted. What were you saying?
You were interrupted. Continue, please.
No, what did you? No. Somebody was yelling at me downstairs. What did you say?
No, I was just saying, like, it kind of feeds into the idea of, say it's, you remember in Austin Powers, and it's like, we're on the English countryside, which looks nothing like Southern California, and they're driving around in the Mustang, and it's the same idea with Lebanon, Tennessee. It's like, I don't know. We're not in Southern California because it looks exactly like Lebanon, Tennessee.
It doesn't, but okay. So Planet Terror.
Planet Terror. Oh, we start with Machete, and Machete is a movie, and moving on.
Right, yeah, we talked about the fake trailers.
Right.
And I love that Danny Trejo did get his own movie out of that, even though I didn't think it was great.
Two.
Yes, two of them. I did not see the second one. Um,
I didn't either.
Planet Terror is a very fun movie, albeit a very incoherent plot. And like,
It's
because
a lot of plot.
yeah, because it starts really heavy into the infected military guys and this weird, like, British Indian guy who's obsessed with cutting people's balls off and carrying around in a jar for some reason. And
Nassim Andrews, who
the
I think is amazing. The reason that he is in this film, I think, is because he was on Lost, and Lost was big at the time. But I think that that guy should have played Khan in a Star Trek movie. Anyway, yes, he's a scientist, and he goes and fights Bruce Willis.
yeah, Bruce Willis is like Commander Muldoon or Corporal or Colonel or whatever his rank is, and he has a bunch of guys there, and they're having to wear their gas masks as a counteractive to the infection that they have. And apparently, three of these infected beasts have escaped from a cage, to which the Naveen Andrews character has this guy castrated for it. And it's just kind of weird. It's like this isolated thing that happens, and then
It's a running gag about the bag of balls.
a brief running gag in there, and then it doesn't come back really. Maybe a little bit in the end, but they're setting up this whole plot with the military and this guy without any context for anything, and then they just kind of put them aside to go to the small town story, which I liked a lot more. Where we have Freddie Rodriguez as the local troublemaker. At least that's the way the sheriff Michael Bean thinks of him.
Michael Bean!
Or deputy, I should say, or deputy sheriff, because I know that the same sheriff from Dusk Till Dawn is in this.
Michael Parks plays Earl McGraw, same sheriff.
Same character, and he plays him again in Death Proof.
Mm-hmm.
And so Earl's here, and it's kind of funny because they start introducing the plot, how the deputy Michael Bean and Freddie Rodriguez have like a history, doesn't really trust him or whatever, and he has a history with the Rose McGowan character, past relationship that's kind of teased and doesn't really go anywhere. And then we see the really creepy evil Dr. Block, played by Josh Brolin, at the hospital with his wife, played by Marley Shelton.
Wasn't it awesome to see Josh Brolin?
Yeah, especially in that kind of role.
Yeah.
And how he has all the meds like in his jacket just for this kind of situation.
Well, and like I really liked it, and I guess there's no spoiling it. It's just basically the character himself. But he throws one of the old glass thermometers into his mouth, and he chews on it like a toothpick, and
Yeah.
it's like. And then one of the paramedics says, you shouldn't do that. And he's like, no, it helps me regulate my calm. And it's like, well, what happens if you bite down on it and you break the glass? And he's like, well, then I'll know I'm not calm.
Well, he also says that it's not sanitary. He's like, yeah, it is, because it's the same one, and I'm the only one using it.
Yeah.
But he suspects that his wife's cheating on him, wants her to get her cell phone. She won't.
No, his wife is cheating on him.
That's what I said.
He suspects it, but
yeah,
she is.
That's exactly what I just said. He thinks his wife's cheating on him.
I'm sorry for yelling.
So he goes after her with the needle thing and starts paralyzing her hands or something, and she eventually breaks her hands trying to break out leave the hospital during this oncoming zombie apocalypse. The sheriff's deputy gets into Freddy's tow truck, and they bring a posse with him with Tom Savini, and they take him down to the station. And at one point, Tom walks in and he's like, "Oh, my ring finger's been bitten off with this freak outside." And Rose McGowan lost her leg when they crashed their tow truck. So it's
How do you just skip over Rose McGowan?
Doing a recap of both these movies. It's too long.
No. I know.
All the plot logic of this movie. Anyway.
But Rose McGowan loses her leg, so we have a woman without a leg. She's a go-go dancer. She cries a lot while she does her job. And everyone tells her that she's hilarious. She's going to be a stand-up comedian. And it's kind of tragically, ironically, glorious when she loses a leg. Because the first thing she says when she wakes up without a leg, she was like, "I don't have a leg. I was going to be a stand-up comedian." Like it's the level of the wit of this film that really, it is a satire, but it's also a love letter.
I like the bit with Jeff Fahey at the barbecue place, the Bone Shack.
Jeff Fahey is amazing in this movie.
Yes, and he's trying to crack the perfect recipe. And at one point, the zombies show up, and he thinks they're like customers, and And when the posse shows up a little while later, they're like, something's wrong. Usually he's out here to greet us, and they go in and they find him like apparently dead behind the counter, and they see like his guts hanging out and everything. They're freaking out, and then Freddy just kind of leans down, scares the dog away that was swiping at it, and then Freddy picks up what looks like his intestines and he eats it. And he's like, oh, this is pretty good. And we see that it's just the sausage, and Jeff gets up, and he's like, he samples some of the sauce. He's like, that's it, I finally cracked it. To which the deputy says, it's got your blood in it. And he tastes it again. He's like, damn it, he's right. So,
Well, and just to close the book on JT's barbecue at the Bone Shack, I would like to say that they were brothers. It was Michael Biehn and Jeff Fahey were brothers. It was JT and Officer McClunky. And they were amazing together. But the thing that they were always sort of sparring about was getting the barbecue sauce or the recipe for the barbecue. And when they are dying, spoilers, they die. They act like Jeff Fahey tells Michael Biehn the barbecue recipe. And Michael Biehn, knowing that he's about to die, starts to write it down. And it's a touching moment. Anyway, Rose McGowan gets a machine gun leg.
yeah, that comes at a point much later in the story. And you have the bit also where Marley Shelton takes her kid and she goes to the house, or she first leaves the house when she breaks both of her wrists trying to open the car door because her hands
I thought just one.
Seemed like she broke both of them because she couldn't use the other hand to start the car.
Okay.
So she takes off. She goes back to her house, and her kid's got like a pet tarantula, a pet scorpion, and a pet turtle. She's like, come on, we got to go. And he puts them all in the same terrarium. And he's like, oh, Mom, they can all live in the same place together. She's like, no, you can't take them all with you. But he does anyway. And she speeds off to her dad's house.
They can all live in the same bucket. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh no, that turtle's going to die.
And they go to the dad's house, and she gives her son a gun. And he's like 8, maybe 8, 9, or 10. And she's
7.
like, don't shoot anybody. Or no, shoot somebody if somebody tries to get you. And he's like, what if it's my dad? And he's like, especially if it's your father. And so she gets out of the car, and barely 5 seconds later, you hear him pull the trigger. Because she even warns him, be careful where you point that thing.
I don't even remember, where is she going at that moment? I've still blocked it out of my mind.
Going to her father's house.
Okay, so she's going to Earl McGraw. Earl McGraw is her dad.
Yeah, which we don't know yet. And
we don't know that yet. But the thing is, and this is why I'm sort of foggy after that, is because every time I see this scene, I'm like, I think that kid just shot himself.
yeah, well, Robert Rodriguez advocated for that because he says it was a different type of real horror that could be in the movie, but he doesn't let the moment breathe long enough. It's like it barely happens, and all of a sudden all the zombies show up.
Well, no, but I think that the shock factor of it is just so out of left field that I'm okay with it being dismissed.
Yeah. I also liked how nonchalant Dr. Block was initially about the zombie invasion. Like, they're bringing in all the bodies, and then the paramedic points out to him that the bodies are missing. He's like, what, they get up and just walk out? And he sees the blood trail, and he's like not even bothered by that prospect. And his buddy, Nicky Cat, the bartender from the bar that we see in Death Proof, he shows up, and he's infected, and it's spreading so quickly. He's like, you got bit half an hour ago? He's like, we got to cut off your arm. It's going to spread to your chest, and we can't cut that off. And then one of the surgeons asked him if he wants to watch. He's like, nah, you can do it yourself. And so Dr. Block comes back later to find the doctor dead, and the Nicky Cat character just like feasting on him, and he charges at Dr. Block, holding him up against the wall, and he decides to pop one of his vegetables from the infection.
Oh no, it's so gross.
Yeah, and it splash, and I thought it was gonna pop and splatter on him. Instead, he peels it off and then
rubs it on him,
and it gets like in his eye and his mouth, so that way, when he shows up at his father-in-law's house, and
but also before we move on from the pustule rubbing, I enjoyed the fact that they held on that shot for so long. Because it was bad, but good, but bad, but good.
Yeah, as they're like walking away, and when he gets to the car, it's funny because she sees that he's coming, and we see he's clearly a zombie now, and she's like, "Oh, you're not getting my son," so she runs and gets her son's body out of the car and tries to carry him towards the door, and she manages to make it there, knocking at the door. She's like, "Oh," and then we see Sheriff Earl McGraw, and she's like, "Daddy, let me in." And he's like, "God damn it!" And we can tell that they're very estranged. But he lets her in anyway. and they eventually show up at the Bone Shack where a bunch of characters. And that was also something else I mentioned is the running joke about how the situation just gets worse and worse, and the sheriff's deputy just refuses to give Freddy a gun, no matter how
Yeah.
bad it gets, even though Freddy saves his life a couple times before being allowed to have a gun. So that was kind of funny, and you get that great joke where they're at the barbecue shack, and all of a sudden it just kind of blacks out, and it says "missing reel," and then it comes back.
Well, but
The whole
like,
time,
and that's
the smoke shack is burning to the ground, and you have the deputy's has been bitten in the neck, and some people are dead and covered in blood, and you have no idea what happened.
well, yeah. Well, I really appreciate the fact that the reason that there is a missing reel is like it's right after the sex scene between Cherry
Yeah, it's like right when
and
it starts. Like
Al Ray.
it barely gets started, and then it cuts to the missing reel portion.
Well, no, it's like the film print has burnt because it's too hot, which
Exactly.
is great. Like that's great, I think, as a stylistic choice in terms of the narrative, and then also or in the visual. But then it says reel missing, and then we come back and everything is on fire,
Yeah, as I said,
and
everything was on fire, and the sheriff's deputy's been bitten in the neck, and everybody's panicking, and they decide to split up and head to the military base, which I thought was funny because there's actually a sign that says military base 2 miles.
2 miles.
Very nonchalantly about it. So Robert apparently got that idea because a lot of Grindhouse films had missing reels just because they're crap low budget movies and they would damage the reels or they'd lose them. And so he thought
Well,
it would be a funny joke to put in there.
may I stop you for just one moment? How did you feel about the film grain?
I loved it. Like it was
I did too.
yeah, the flickering and everything gives it the sense that it's old and run down like a Grindhouse movie should be. And then when they get to the military base, we cut back to the story that we started with, where you have the military guys again, and they run into Naveen Andrews, and they decide that they get taken. Well, they get arrested first at the bridge because Muldoon decides that he has to quarantine everyone, and he stupidly, and you see how callous he kind of is because he decides to quarantine them all with the infected or potentially soon to be infected sheriff's deputy Michael Bean in the same cell. And this is where eventually we see Quentin Tarantino has a cameo as this really creep member of the team.
Creep ass motherfucking military rapist is what I would call him.
Exactly, and it was kind of weird because he says at one point that like this guy says to him, but she only has one leg. And he's like easier access, so he goes in there and he takes the mask off, and we see that he's infected too, but he has it off so long that his balls are like falling off, and the guy's like, dude, put your mask back on. And he's like, no, I'll just have to make this quick. And I'm thinking, I think it's too late.
Yeah, man. He's got like goo penis.
Yeah, so that and
It's gross. It's really surprisingly gross. Like even as a visual, like just as a shot that you watch. And I'm looking at it and I understand what's going on cognitively, but I'm just like they made this. This is gross.
yeah, and she like beats him to death or whatever, and he gets hit in the head. His head just starts wigging out, and he starts his head becomes like this.
Oh, it's great. No, Rose McGowan has because she lost her leg and now she has like a tree. She has a table leg as a leg, and so she kicks him in the head, stabs him in the eye, and then they kill him.
Yeah, and they all stop initially because they're all looking at him, and he's wondering what they're looking at, and it's not the table leg in his eye. He looks down at his crotch, sees that it's like completely fallen off, and just
It's gooey.
yeah,
It
it's
looks
not even there.
it looks like a Slurpee machine that doesn't work.
Yes, and he's like, oh shit, his head all explodes and shit. And I'm guessing the missing reel is where Dr. Block met his fate. I don't recall seeing the Josh Brolin character die. Like he shows up to try and kill the wife, and she managed to get in her dad's house, and then you don't really see him again. I don't think. So that was I'm going to attribute that to the missing reel. And we do see that Earl McGraw did survive, even though they split up. And so they break out of their captivity and they team up with Naveen Andrews' character. And he's like, there's helicopters on the other side of the barrier. We just have to get over there. And
this is so hilarious. This is I love this scene.
No, yeah,
I was like,
great action.
Naveen Andrews, and he's gonna go, and he's gonna be the guy, and then they just blow up his head.
Yeah, which I was like, okay, uh, but they do
Did you
manage.
like that? I thought it was
Yeah,
hilarious. I thought it
yeah,
was awesome.
I also like that they, they steal the helicopter and they tilt it so that way the rotor blades just start mowing everybody down.
Oh, that was so dope. I love that.
And then Rose McGowan is like, she does the stunt with the motorcycle. She and El Rey get on there, and at first she wants to sit in front of him, so he's facing her, and he's like, no, get on the other way. So she sits behind him and uses the machine gun now that she has. It just starts blowing fools away as he's doing donuts and stuff like that. And they do the big motorcycle jump, and it's like a ton of great action. But unfortunately, El Rey does not survive. Freddy, he gets killed, and
he gets shot to death.
Yes, and she's hoisted up into the helicopter. I can't remember what happened to Muldoon, if he killed...
Who's Muldoon again?
Bruce Willis?
Oh, no, he turned... Because he was out of the gas, he got all monstrous, and then they just fucking shot him.
Okay, yeah. So the helicopter takes off, and we cut to, like, some undetermined time later. They're in, like, somewhere in Central America on the beach. It's all wonderful, paradise, and they're going to live happily ever after. And at Rebel Rodriguez's insistence, because he was Robert Rodriguez's son who played Tony, who shot himself in the head accidentally. They have a post-credit scene showing Tony playing on the beach with his tarantula, turtle, and scorpion, having survived somehow inexplicably. Because Tony liked the version where he lived better than the one where he dies, and so Robert decided.
You know what?
For him.
Like, and I hate to say it, I don't want to get political ever on any of these shows, but I would say, like, one of the few taboos of society is the death of children.
Yes.
And so I don't know what happens when I watch Planet Terror, but when I finally I know it's coming. I know it's coming. That kid is going to shoot itself in the face. Didn't I tell you not to do that? Didn't I tell you?
Yeah, so I really like the fact that they used the graininess and the flickering a lot more in this one than Death Proof. I love the color grading, making it all look kind of sickly and weird. It does feel very much like a 70s Grindhouse movie, especially with how
you never get to all. I just want to finish my point, and I just want to say that you never see death of children. I think it's shocking, and I am shocked by it when I see it, especially in such a lighthearted affair with such a star-studded cast. But so, do you have anything else to say about Planet Terror?
A lot, actually. I'm just getting started. So,
all right.
The look of it, the feel of it, how incoherent the plot are, so many different plots and characters. But at the same time, as I'm watching it, it's like it almost feels too long for what it is, because it's like an hour 43 minutes, give or take, without excluding credits. Because again, there's so many plots and none of them really have any satisfying ending. Really, like the whole deal with Marley Shelton and Dr. Block, Josh Brolin, that kind of had a non-ending in a way.
It was kind of tacked on. Like she just ran into a helicopter and found Josh Brolin. Like what?
Yeah, and then that's right, they did that towards the end. The fact that the will they or won't they romance with El Rey and Rose McGowan is like, okay.
I thought it was almost like a Michael Biehn, Linda Hamilton situation. I thought that they had a past, they reconnected, they did the sex, and then that's when El Rey and Cherry had a daughter.
Yeah, and
I thought it worked.
The barbecue stuff was funny. And then the military thing kind of being randomly there at the beginning with not clear. It's like it's never clear why the military people are infected or why they have the.
Yeah.
Like, why did Naveen Andrews have these monsters inside a cage that he was giving to them? I get it. It's an in media res thing like you see with some Grindhouse movies, but maybe it would have been more interesting in that particular storyline if they stuck with it a bit longer, but they don't. It's just like you randomly come back and they're still there, and it's like, is the town being quarantined? Like, what's going on exactly? I don't really know. But then again, it speaks to the chaos of what is a Grindhouse movie, and it is a very fun, schlocky movie. And I think it's far superior to like 99% of zombie movies. I find mostly bad because it's just the same plot over and over again. It's like, oh, there's a group of survivors having to hold out somewhere, and it's like, yeah, I get all the social commentary that zombie movies provide that George Romero did, but for the most part, I just find them boring. And it's like I would rather play Left 4 Dead on my Xbox than watch this movie or watch whatever zombie movie it is. But
Yeah.
because the only ones I really like, Night of the Living Dead, which I think drags in the middle, but I liked it. The remake of Dawn of the Dead I really liked, and then Land of the Dead by George Romero, that was really good. I like because it's not really about the zombies; it's about this quasi-society run by Dennis Hopper in the aftermath of the apocalypse, which I thought was kind of neat. But this movie is Planet
Oh
Terror.
yeah, Dennis Hopper is great in that movie.
Yeah, and so this movie is Planet Terror. I mean, yeah, technically they're not zombies; they never really say what they are, but it's in a way all the various plots and the schlockiness serve it well because it's not just recycling the same predictable plot over and over again. It's just shoehorning in as many characters so you never get bored or you never get distracted.
But also, like, and the thing is that when it comes to the Grindhouse movies, when it comes to those cheesy B horror movies of the 1970s and 80s, it's like Jeff Fahey as you want some barbecue? Like that is a character that would show up in those movies. Like I think
Exactly.
it still has the levity. It's not just like it's explicit. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah, definitely the most explicit of the two films. And it's like not trying to hide that and just like even the way the Josh Brolin character, Dr. Block, is so corrupt and he's just blatantly getting away with the stuff he gets away with on the ward, and they keep bringing in all the bodies. And he's like, "Oh, damn it, a Wednesday night, oh, car accident and this and that." And I'm thinking, is the car accident supposed to be a reference to Death Proof? Probably not, but I thought that was kind of funny. But and just all the chaos that you're seeing, and it's just it's exactly what a zombie movie type movie should be.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was I really like Planet Terror. I'll score it later because now we talk about.
Well, but we have to score them like we have to score them together.
Yeah. So I like Planet Terror. So anything else to say about that one before we move on?
No, but in between we have to let's all go to the lobby.
Yeah, and this is the funny one is that Death Proof actually begins with like a cartoon advertising the rating. It's like this little blue tiger or whatever crawling around and frolicking the bushes. I'm like, what is this? And then it just kind of it goes all silhouette and it says this feature is restricted. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, that was kind of weird. And then I guess in the theatrical version, that's where they have the trailers in between as well.
Yeah. So, and this is the weird thing about having seen the theatrical cut, like in a theater. I'm sorry for keep harping on that, but like you're watching it and you've already watched one movie. And it's like we have an entirely other movie. And so they do the fake trailers and then this movie is restricted. And what do you get right off the hop, Kat? It's a Quentin Tarantino movie. What do you get right off the hop?
Well, it says a film by Quentin Tarantino, and this title flashes on the screen. Something Thunderbolt for a flat.
Thunderbolt.
And then it cuts to black, and it says Death Proof.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut back, and for the first 8.5 minutes of this film, at least going off because again I haven't seen the theatrical cut, but it's these girls. One's a radio DJ, and then her two.
No. Wait. I do not want to be rude, and I do not want to be disrespectful.
What?
However, once it says Death Proof, what do we get? Feet. Death Proof is the feetiest of the Quentin Tarantino movies.
Yeah, I don't get that fetish, but okay.
Well, I don't get it either, but I'm just saying. Yeah. People say Quentin Tarantino has a foot fetish, and this movie is like a picture book of feet.
Yeah, so like I said, it's the radio DJ and her two friends, and for the first
Jungle Julia.
The first 8.5 minutes, they're driving down the road and they're having the most boring conversation. And it's like this movie, unfortunately, is completely devoid of the sharp dialogue, witty dialogue that Tarantino is known for, which makes it a real drag.
Really?
Completely.
Wow.
And so this goes on for 8.5 minutes, and it feels like it's 20. It's just them talking. Hey, what are you gonna do? Oh, we're gonna go to the lake. They meet up. We're gonna have guys. We're gonna go meet up and pick up a friend. And I'm like, oh my god, just shut up. And so they finally get to this. They take a stop at this like gas station, and they go inside, or some of them go inside. Whatever her name is, the arguably I would say the protagonist of the first half, Butterfly, as she's called. She stays outside the gas station initially, and she sees a car.
Vanessa Ferlito.
Oh yeah, is that her character's name?
No, that's the actress's name.
Oh,
great performance. I thought she was really good.
Okay, so let's see. Let me double check what the type of car was. It
doesn't matter. Which one?
It's a 1971 Chevy Nova. That's his first car. And
nice.
And it's black, and it's got the skull crossbones on the hood.
And he's got a duck.
He's got a duck emblem, 3-inch emblem marker on the front of the car, which I thought was kind of funny. And he stops the car in the middle of the street, kind of idling the engine, and he's just looking at her. And she's kind of looking at him, wondering, okay. And then he just kind of drives off. Then they move, and then she gets back with her friends. They move on. They get to the bar. I can't remember the name of the bar that they go to, but
what for margaritas and Mexican food?
Yeah,
it's called Gueva, I believe.
Gueva. Okay, so they go there, and they're sitting down, and they meet one of their friends who immediately spills the beans that Julia did something, and did something at Butterfly's expense. She's like, "Wait, what'd you do?" She's like, "We weren't supposed to tell her this, and what'd you do?" But they go back and forth, and so he's like, "Well, she's a really good. This other girl here is a really good actress. Maybe she could show you what she did." And so she's like, "Okay." So
that chick is so good.
She is.
Like I've never seen her in anything else.
Yeah.
But when I saw her, I was so happy, and it's just like you are one of the most beautiful. Like she is. Oh, Meg Ryan, awesome.
Yeah, and she imitates like the
dude,
person, like a dude, and basically she's making the conversation between, imitating the conversation between Julia and the radio listeners. And basically, Julia made this promise that if somebody should come to the bar that night and approach Butterfly, address her as Butterfly, buy her a drink, and recite a poem to her.
What poem?
I can't remember what it's called.
Well, you know what? I do happen to have it quite rightly.
You don't have to read the whole thing off just yet.
Well, it's not that long.
Well, we can read it off. Stuntman Mike says it.
The woods are lovely, dark and deep, and I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep. Do you hear me, Butterfly? Miles to go before you sleep is the poem.
I guess we won't repeat it when Stuntman Mike says it. Okay, so she cites the poem, and she's like, well, then what? And then she's like, well, then you're going to have to give him a lap dance. And she's like, you motherfucker. And so she's like, I don't want to do this. She's like, well, I already put it on the radio, so you kind of have to do it. It's like, oh, whatever. So then we get into a lengthy thing where they're talking about they're going to take this trip to the lake, and it's going to be girls only. The other friends show up. At one point, Rose McGowan's there, and she's kind of talking with them for a bit, and then she goes up to the bar where we see Stuntman Mike wearing a denim jacket that has the Icy Hot logo on the back. And she's asking for a ride, and he says, oh, yeah, when it's time for me to go home, I'll totally ride home. She's like, are you going to be good to ride home? And he's like, well, yeah, I'm only drinking these club sodas and water. She's like, why do you come to a bar if you're not going to drink? And he's like, well, I'm working up. Well, there are other things. There's the nachos, and there's the fascinating clientele of the bar, and just ask more, anything. And she's like, how do I know you're a stuntman? He's like, I am, Stuntman Mike. Really? Yeah, just ask this guy. And she's like, hey, Warren, who's this guy? Played by Quentin Tarantino. He's like, oh, Stuntman Mike. But this is not the same. I assume this is not the same character who goes on to be the rapist in the Planet Terror film, even though in this particular story there is an overlap. So, okay, whatever. So he's talking. He's like, don't worry, honey. When I leave, you'll know you can come with me. She's like, okay. And then we see Eli Roth and Omar Doom in this movie. And the Eli Roth character is a bit more of a sleazebag because he's talking about how they can get these girls really drunk and hammered, and he's like, they're not gonna. And Omar's like, they're not gonna drink, Jaeger shots of Jaeger and all that. He's like, you just gotta be really cool and all that. And before we know it, this trip to the cabin at Lake LBJ will be go from a girls trip to having a couple guys, and it's gonna be good. And you don't really see what happens to them. He comes up with this plan, and he kind of disappears from the movie or the bar. It's like, what? So Stuntman Mike, Rose McGowan notices she's taking interest in the people in the back. She's like, take a picture, it'll last longer, and blah, blah. And this kind of goes on and on until we cut to them suddenly all sitting outside on the patio. And Stuntman Mike wanders over there and tells Julia, he's like, hey, don't I know you from somewhere? Don't you got a billboard out by this burger joint or whatnot? And she's like, oh yeah, and I got one right there. And he leans over and he sees it. And he's like, oh yeah, it's kind of cool. He makes small talk, but he's not ready to say the poem yet, or to approach Butterfly yet. So he goes back inside, and they're like, that guy was kind of weird.
Well, no, but and I thought, okay, it's a perfect point to stop and say how awesome that Kurt Russell is.
Oh yeah, undoubtedly, this is a great character, and it's
This
like
is amazing.
I'm so much.
I was watching it and I was just like, is this better than Jack Burton? Yes. Is it
Yeah,
better than Snake Plissken? I don't know.
I'm so much more fascinated with Stuntman Mike than any of the other characters in this film. And so he goes back into the bar. We have more bullshit small talk, and eventually comes out and approaches Butterfly, and she's like, "Have you been following us?" And Julia's like, "Wait, what do you mean?" She's like, "Well, I saw him earlier today outside the gas station." He's like, "No, I'm not following you guys. I saw you outside. I recognize you." And he says, "Yeah, what name would be Butterfly? Is it?" And he brought them the beers, and so he recites the poem, and she's like, "Sorry, I already honored that commitment earlier today." And he's like, "No, you didn't." And she's like, "Yeah." I was like, "No, I could tell you didn't, and I could tell you probably were expecting a bunch of guys to pester you about it, and they didn't, and that didn't make you feel too good to be unwanted." And then Julia kind of turns out to not be as much of a jerk for signing her up for this because she tries to get her out of it, saying, "No, dude, that was a one-time offer earlier, and she's not going to do this with you, blah blah blah." But then he's like, "Well, okay, I guess you're not going to." But you know how people meet and they say, "Man, you're great in my book." Well, I actually have a book, and he whips it out, and he opens
And he
it.
does such a great John Wayne impression as well.
He does when he's saying this. "Oh, I got the book right here," and he whips it out, and he says, "Well, you're just gonna have to go in this column over here." She's like, "Which column's that?" He's like, "It's the chicken shit column." And she's like, "Well, what if I were to give you a lap dance?" He's like, "Well, I guess I couldn't put you in the chicken shit column then." And she kind of leans forward and she's thinking about it for a minute, and there's like crazy. This whole scene is just dead silence from everybody else on the patio. Nobody is saying anything about any of this. And then she's like, "Okay, go inside, get ready for your lap dance." And she goes in, and Julia's just like, "I said, like, if they were young and hot and had it on, not if what part of that did you not understand?" Implicating that she was trying to get her to hook up with somebody. So we cut back into the bar, and then she gives him this lap dance. Whatever the song was. Really nice sequence, and it actually, similar to Death Proof, it cuts out at a particular point.
It does. And also the lap dance scene was not in the theatrical cut.
Really?
Yeah.
Of all the things to cut, they cut that. That's surprising. So it cuts towards the end of the lap dance to them all going outside. They're leaving, and Julia and the girls are taunting the Rose McGowan character. She's like, "I'm not going to sleep with him." And Mike's like, "I didn't hear you. I didn't hear that." It's like he's telling a joke. And then she's like, "Oh, I'm just going to ride home with him." He's like, "Oh, I heard that." And so they're the other girls are leaving. And then she looks at Mike's car. And that's something else that Butterfly mentioned. And he's like, "What is it? Were you afraid of my scar? Are you afraid of me? Was it my scar?" She's like, "No, it's your car." He's like, "Oh, yeah, it's my mom's car." Just kind of.
I thought that was hilarious. That was great. When he's like, "Yeah, well, it's my mom's."
And so he's showing Rose McGowan the car. She's like, "Oh, this is kind of cool. What is this?" He's like, "Stunt cars. I'm a stunt guy. You do this kind of stuff." And that's something else. He had talked the ear off about all the people and shows he'd worked on or worked with, and they didn't have any clue what he was talking about. And he's like, "Yeah,
big ups to Robert Urich."
Yes, and he's like, "Yeah, this is a stunt car. When you crash things in movies." And she's like, "Well, don't they just?" It's like, "How do you think they do all that stuff?" And she's like, "Well, CGI." And he's like, "Yeah, well, sadly, you're probably right nowadays, but back in the good old days, and the Toby Hillicky days, and the Vanishing Point days, and a bunch of others that he rattles off, now they did this stuff for real, and it was awesome." He's like, "Here, take a look." And he shows her that he's got this roll cage on the driver's side. And he's like, "Yeah, this is a death-proof car." And she's like, "What do you mean death-proof?" He's like, "Yeah, see, it's perfectly fine." And then he shows her side of the car. She's like, "What is this?" And she's like, they all usually, the film crews like to put the cameras in here, so it doesn't really have much of a seat, but here you go." And he pulls up this crappy go-kart seat, and he sits it down inside the car. And she's like, "Come on, it'll be fine." And she kind of gets in the car. They drive towards the exit of the parking lot, and he's like, "Which direction are you going?" And she says, "I'm going right."
I'm going right.
But the other girls had gone left. He's like, "Ah, shucks, that's too bad." She's like, "What?" He's like, "Well, there's a 50-50 chance you're going to go left." He's like, "I'm going to go left." And say, "You know what, we're going left." And you may not be getting scared. You may not have gotten scared till later if we went left, if you wanted to go left. But now it seems like you're going to have to start getting scared now.
Immediately.
And he just starts gunning it and taking off. she's getting smacked around in the car, and eventually he kind of.
Oh my God, she's basically sitting on a stool in the passenger seat of a muscle car, and she is being thrown around in a plexiglass case of emotion.
Well, she's not in the plexiglass. He is protected by the plexiglass. She is just banging around in the metal of the car because
He's
just
using the car as a weapon. It is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and eventually when he gets the car moving steady again, she's like apologizes. She's like, "Let me go. I won't say anything. It's a funny joke, mister. It was really funny." He's like, "Yeah, you know what, honey? You remember what I mentioned earlier? That this car is death proof. Well, that's true, but only on the driver's side." And then he just slams the brakes.
Slams on the brakes.
And she just slams right into the dash and breaks her neck or whatever. And
well, and Kat, this is a good part to sort of pause.
Yeah.
You're a car lady. You know cars.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy this movie because of the cars?
I think those are the only good sequences in the movie, but it's just the stuff between is just bad. And so we're up to
okay.
But the car stunts and stuff are pretty good. So he kills her, and then he speeds off down the road. We see the other girls are in the car. They're driving, and Julia has her leg hung out the window, which I frankly have never thought is a good idea, nor is having your feet on the dashboard.
My sister's done it.
Yeah, it always seems like a dumb idea, and we're about to find out why.
I know.
Stuntman Mike zooms
I try
around.
and tell her.
That's funny. He also mentioned at one point that, when Rose McGowan asked him, how'd you get into the stunt guy business? Like, stuntman, my brother, Stuntman Bob. Just great. So he speeds past them, hell ways down the road. He turns the car around, shuts off the headlights, starts revving the car, speeding up, waiting for the right moment. And then at like the last second, he goes at like 150 or something and just rams the car, and they replay it several times. So you see specifically what happens to each person. And as you mentioned, Julia gets her legs severed right off the back of the car. Butterfly gets her face ripped to shreds, and I can't exactly remember what happens to the other two, but it's pretty bad.
Oh, no, there's one lady who gets fucking her face ripped off by the, car, the tire, like...
Yeah, that's what happened to Butterfly.
It's insane. It is so much carnage in a matter of less than 20 seconds.
Yeah, and he completely totals the car.
Mm-hmm.
And then we cut to the same hospital from Death Proof, because his first or from Planet Terror, because his first part took place in Austin, Texas. And we see Marley Shelton again as the female Dr. Block, and Stuntman Mike is in there. The doctor's talking to him, and he only has a broken finger and like a bruised ribs or broken. Like, he came out pretty fine. And
well, the car was death proof. Come on, let's be fair.
Yes, and so we then see Michael Parks and his son.
Number one.
I can't remember what it's played by his actual son too, I believe. Or no, maybe it's not.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
It is. Yeah, I can't remember his name though. Something Parks. Anyway, the sheriff starts giving his theory that he thinks that this was vehicular homicide. He thinks Mike did this deliberately, and he's like, and the guy's well, the sheriff, they already decided. The district attorney says it's not, because the other girls have been drinking and had alcohol on them, and he's like, yeah, I know, but there's no harm in thinking, so I can think it if I want to think it, even if I can't prove it. He's like, I think Mike did this, and he did it deliberately and all that. And he's like, I got a couple choices here. I could stew over this and let it bug me for months, or I can go back to following NASCAR. And frankly, the latter just sounds a lot better for me. And but he's like, really, Dad?
You know what? And when I heard that, when he said that line, I was like, I had to think just a little bit about Sam Gerard from The Fugitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, so this is what a lazy Sam Gerard would do. Right.
And it's funny because his son presses him again. He's like, but you're just going to give up because Mike killed all these people? And he's like, I can tell you one thing. I think Mike did it. And I know the DA's not going to do anything about it. But I'll tell you one thing, he ain't doing it again in Austin, Texas. And then we have a to the third movie, essentially, in Lebanon, Tennessee. Now, before I move on, I'll say my problems with the first half of this Death Proof is, again, I didn't think it had the sharp, witty dialogue, except for Stuntman Mike stuff. All that was great. All the stuff with the girls and their plans to go to the lake, the sleazy guys who just kind of disappeared. All that was just... I'm falling asleep. I was like, I can't. It's just too much. It was very slow paced. I mean, I was surprised on rewatching this to see that this first storyline for Death Proof was only 53 minutes long, because it feels so much longer. I mean, there's not enough of the gearhead car stuff in this first half to get me to have really enjoyed it. And I kind of was looking forward to finding out, well, wow, why does Stuntman Mike do this? Is it because he feels rejected? Because the girls don't think he's hot? Because they're kind of teasing him? But like, what is it? Because before he runs after after he kills Rose McGowan, he pulls the 3 photos that he took of the girls, and he's like, time to go catch up with my girlfriends, and threw them out the window, which I thought was kind of interesting. And thought, okay, that's kind of weird. And so it's a great concept. I just felt they spent too much time with these boring, typical it felt like teeny bopper type conversations that I just didn't feel needed to go on as long as it did.
Well, I was going to save it till the end, but I'll say it right now. The weird thing about these 2 movies is that they were intended to be seen back to back. And the thing is that with the crescendo of Planet Terror and the lull of the first half of Death Proof, like, that is intentional. That is sort of the way a symphony works.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to analyze them as separate beasts, even though, like, that's the only way. Like, oh my God, if I want to spend $208, I can totally get the Blu-ray. But like, Grindhouse, like, the movie itself, it works as a 3-hour and 11-minute film, and an experience that you go to a carnival for. And to separate the 2, we do now. And I like both of those movies separately, but, like, part of the thing with Death Proof is, those characters who you're bored with and you want them to die? There's a reason. They want you to want them to die, so we get on to the good characters.
I know.
So anyway,
I meant that it still didn't need to go on as long as it did. It's like, I get
well,
there.
I guess, that's timing and pacing.
Yeah, and so the pacing I thought was way off on this. So then we get to the second half in Lebanon, and it starts in black and white.
Yes, it does.
And I'm not sure why it starts in black and white, but as you pointed out, this portion was not in the theatrical cut.
And I think that's why it's in black and white.
Well, there's other things in the Planet Terror that were not in the theatrical cut that are not in black and white. But okay, whatever. So this one begins with Stuntman Mike. This time around, he's no longer driving that car. He's now driving.
Don't they even have a title card that says like 18 months later?
14 months later.
14, pardon me.
He's driving a 69 Dodge Charger. And
yes.
It's black. It has the duck on it, but it does not have the skull and crossbones on the hood. And he's parked in the car, listening to music, pretending to hear anything. You hear these other 3 girls, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead as this actress, this kind of fiery actress. You have Rosario Dawson as a stunt girl in the back, and then the
Tracy Toms
is the other stunt driver. And they go inside the liquor store to get some drinks and stuff. And while they're in there, Mike turns off the radio. He's eavesdropping on them. And he gets out of the car and he walks over and looks inside the window of the liquor store. Then he turns around and he sees that, once again, the foot fetish thing, because Rosario has her bare feet hanging out the window of the car. And
feet! It's a Tarantino feet!
He sneaks forward and he barely touches the base of her feet. And backs up, and first Rosario kind of kicks her leg like it was a fly or something like that. Then he does something even creepier where he leans forward really quietly and licks her feet, and then he throws his keys on the ground really quickly and starts going, fuck, I gotta get my damn keys. Where are my keys? And Rosario didn't notice, I guess, that this was the guy actually licking her feet. He gets into his car, he revs the engine real fast, he looks at him briefly like, and then he just peels out going backwards into the main street and speeds off down the road. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character, kind of Lee, she turns and kind of laughs, and then Rosario's like, yeah, whatever, the guys think he's weird, whatnot. And so Rosario gets out of the car, she's sitting on the front just kind of waiting, and then it's all of a sudden it goes from black and white to color.
Yes.
And it's kind of interesting that they chose to exclude the fact that she noticed Mike from the theatrical cut, because the same thing happened in the first half of the movie when Butterfly noticed Stuntman Mike outside the gas station watching her, but they
yes
in the theatrical. I assume that. Granted, I haven't seen the theatrical cut of Death Proof, so I would assume that scene was in the theatrical cut as well. I don't know, but in this case they didn't, so that's interesting. So then Rosario goes into the liquor store. She gets some bottles of drinks she wants, and then she finds a magazine that the Lee character wanted because she's like an actress and she's in it, and
Yeah.
is to buy.
Well, and also she gets a telephone call, and her ringtone is oh, yeah, 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 yeah. It's the Daryl Hannah from Kill Bill.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. I've only seen that. I didn't care for that film. So they go to the. She goes to pay for the magazine.
Why do we do this show together if you don't know anything about this?
Well, that's just one song. So anyway, she sticks her head outside of the store and she's like, "Hey, this guy's gotten the latest issue of Italian Vogue." And he's like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, you'll pay us, $27 for it we'll
Yeah.
sell it for that." And she's like, "You're not gonna find the latest issue of Italian Vogue in Lebanon, Tennessee, much less anywhere in Tennessee. So you want me to buy?" She's like, "Yeah." And we see that the clerk is played by Nicky Katt, who was the guy who got ripped up in Planet Terror. Again, I don't know if there's an overlap here or not, because this is
Like, are you a Nicky Katt fan?
No, I just recognized him.
I like him. I like, you know what? I get giddy when I see him in The Dark Knight. I like Nicky Katt.
He's in The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Who'd he play?
He was like the guy. When we do our Christopher Nolan recap, we'll talk about Nicky Katt. Anyway, I'm just happy to see him here.
Yeah. So yes, not that I'm not a fan. It's just like, oh, cool, it's Nicky Katt. So they get the magazine. They get back in the car, and we find out that they're going to be picking up their New Zealand stunt friend Zoe Bell from the airport, playing basically an exaggerated version of herself. So they take off to the airport.
And so adorable.
Yeah, so they come out of the store, and we see Stuntman Mike there again, and he speeds off down the road. Okay, I just answered my own question. That's why they didn't have it there earlier, because they have him come back again. And this time, Rosario opts not to tell the others about it. They speed off to the airport. They pick up Zoe, and she's talking about how she really loves the fact that they're going to be shooting here for the next month because she wants to. She's like, well, what do you want to do? She's like, I want to find a 1970 Dodge Challenger and take it out for a ride.
Okay, no, wait. Before we get to that, before they pick up Zoe, and yes, we do want to get a 1970 Dodge Challenger and take it for a ride. But here's the thing, Kat, can I see you at camera 2 for just 1 second?
What?
So, I always thought that and it's because of this movie, I always thought that the most romantic thing you could ever do is make a mixtape for a lady. So anyway, I made a mixtape for a lady, and I gave it to her, and she was so happy. And then she looked at me and she said, I don't have a tape player. So all I'm saying is, gentlemen, if you have seen this movie and you think it is the most romantic thing as based on the presentation of the performances of the incredibly attractive women in this film, I would just say, don't. They don't have tape players. You were saying.
Okay, that was a very bizarre trip. Anyway, she says she wants a 1970 Dodge Challenger, that she subscribed to the newspaper from Lebanon, Tennessee. I have a hard time believing that they would send her a copy down in New Zealand, but okay. And so she found out that there was a...
She said she did it online, though.
I can't believe they have one online for that. Anyway, she found out that conveniently there happens to be one for sale in this town where they're going to be for the next month for filming of a movie, which Lee is starring in. And so she's like, we're going to go take it for a joyride. And they're like, okay. So they go to this farm, and you see this guy, Jasper, and he's a bit slow. And they're asking if they could see the car, and he shows it to them. And like, well, before we buy, we want to take it out for a ride. He's like, oh, I'm not an idiot. You guys are just going to leave. She's like, and Rosario's like, nah. And it was actually, it's funny because Zoe and Tom is her name.
Lee?
No, the other girl.
Oh, Tracy Toms. I forget what
Tracy
her name
Toms.
or her character name was.
Right. So they both are reluctant to tell Rosario why they want to borrow this car specifically. Say, we want to do stuff, and you might stay behind with Lee. It's like, what? You want me?
Mast.
He's like, you want me to stay behind with the redneck over here while you guys go off and do cool shit? She's like, no, I'm not doing that. You drag me out to the middle of nowhere and expect me to do that shit. I'm like, well, you're not going to do it. And he's like, well, what are you going to do? And they still don't want to tell her. And they're like, look, we'll just say, okay, you can come with us, but just, well, for collateral, we'll just leave. You can stay behind. And it's funny because Rosario gets all indignant that they didn't even suggest this, like implying that the idea that she should imply to Jasper that she might perform sexual favors for him in exchange for being able to drive the car. And she's understandably mortified by this and can't believe they would even mention it. But then, very callously, she's completely fine if they had Lee be the person who
does Lee ever show up in the movie again?
No, when they leave her behind, they leave her. So
they leave her behind with Jasper.
Rosario goes over to Jasper, and he's like, I'm not going to let you take my car. I'm not an idiot. She's like, no, there's 4 reasons you have to worry about that. 1, we're not thieves. 2, that would be rude. 3, we're going to be in a hotel for the next month, and she gives him the name. You can look us up. And 4, you see that girl over there? He's like, yeah, I recognize her. She's like, oh, she's an actress. And she shows him her picture in the magazine. And she's like, she was, he's like, what movie are you making? He's like, it's a cheerleader movie. Why is she dressed like that? We're making a cheerleader movie. What's that about? About cheerleaders. Is it a porn film? Yeah, but don't tell her. She's really shy. Just go. And so great. And so then Jasper, we cut to the 3 girls are in the car.
Also, Rosario Dawson is incredible in this movie. She is so charming and so likable.
Yeah, so we cut to the 3 girls, and they're like, oh, Jasper Lee Jasper. Just say he's going to keep you company or whatever. And they drive off, and he's kind of like, hey. And she looks really like scared and uneasy about this, and I'm like,
as you would.
Yeah, and I admit I skipped the scene where they're actually sitting at the diner talking, but it's basically them just talking and bullshitting about the same shit.
I liked it though. I thought it was kind of
how naive Lee is. Like when Lee accidentally calls Zoe an Aussie, and she gives her like the death stare. It's like, you know what happens when you call an Aussie when you call a Kiwi an Aussie, and they're like, no, and it's like, oh, we're just teasing you and that kind of thing. So,
but also, I really like Mary Elizabeth Winstead, and I think that her being, like, she's convincingly, adorably dumb in this movie, but she's also, I've seen her in other things, and it's just like you are, like, piercingly intelligent. And so, like, a lot of this is, again, from the intro, everyone is in this. Like every actor is in this, and they're all giving different performances. Like you have Jeff Fahey being the
even
whatever,
in the trailers,
senator.
Even the fake trailers were stacked with all sorts of actors, you know. So it's kind of like the fact that they're basically leaving Lee here, which something most certainly is going to happen, which Lee doesn't want to have happen. Made me feel not so bad about what's about to happen to these 3 girls.
Well.
And so when Stuntman Mike shows up, I'm like, yeah, get him. And so he starts. So it's funny because they're driving down the road and they do another. They stop the car. They get out. They're walking up front. Rosario's sitting in the back waiting. Like, what are they doing? And they're looking around and they're kind of measuring the road and they're getting ready. And they get in the car and they start driving. And there's another cut, like a missing reel type cut. And it cuts straight to Zoe saying, hey, Rosario, check this out. And then she gets onto the hood of the car with the 2 belts playing ship's mass, where you have one belt coming out of one window, one belt coming out of the other. She's standing on top of the car, and she carefully slides down onto the hood and is dangling there as they're speeding this 1970 Dodge Challenger and through the back roads of Tennessee. And Rosario's like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this. It's kind of crazy. And Tracy's really enjoying it, and Zoe's loving it. And then Stuntman Mike comes along. And he's watching them from the hillside through his binoculars, and he's taking pictures. And he took pictures of them from the airport we saw, too, because he's been following them. And I'm like, yeah, here comes Stuntman Mike. He's in a, And it's funny, he doesn't immediately try and go for the death blow. He rear ends him a couple times, and he starts ramming him a bit. And eventually, Zoe's terrified. This chase goes on for quite a while. She ends up losing one of the belts, and she even says, oh, I'm scared, I'm petrified. Like, yeah, I know. And there's a point where they manage to ram Mike off the road, and he has to avoid some farming cars. And they could have gradually brought the car to a stop. There was enough time to do that, to get Zoe off, but they don't do it. And so she's still dangling on the front. They keep on going through the back roads some more, and they keep ramming her.
Because it's fun, Janet.
And he's, come on, girls, come on. You want to be such bitches. And he rams them again. And this goes on for a while until finally they come to a stop. And Zoe just gets thrown off the car into the bushes, and we don't see if she's alive or not. And Mike strangely gets out of the car like nothing has happened. Like it's just a chill thing to do, that he completely banged up their Dodge Challenger. And he's like, hey, wasn't that fun? And then Rosario finally does what she should have done a long time ago, which is get out the gun or not Rosario, but the other girl.
She was busy driving.
She could have told Rosario, hey, I got a gun, use it, you know? Uh,
I don't think Rosario's character Abernathy could have used a gun.
yeah, so she gets the gun out and she fires and hits Mike in the arm, and he screams. He's surprised, like genuinely shocked that
He squeals like a stuck pig.
That's the next thing that's a weird, bizarre twist in this movie. Mike takes off. He parks on the side of a road somewhere, and he's like squealing and crying like a baby and throwing a fit. And I'm like,
I know, it's so great.
It's so against his character up to this point, it seems, because he seems like a much tougher, grizzled guy.
Oh, and I'm sorry. The vehicular murderer doesn't happen to be a fucking hypocrite. Yeah, no, I liked that he was kind of turned into a squealing nonce.
Yeah, so he bangs open the glove box. He gets out a bottle of liquor because we know he's not a teetotaler. He just pretended to be one so that way he couldn't get in trouble for what he was going to do that night.
Exactly.
So he takes a swig. He's like, oh, I better get this over with. And he splashes the wound with it, and he screams more like a little kid. And meanwhile, Rosario and Tracy are just like petrified in the car. And then all of a sudden, Zoe reaches her arms up. She's like, I'm okay. And Zoe's just totally, not just physically okay. She's like totally fine. She's no longer afraid. She's like, she comes up alongside the car. She's like, hey, want to go get him? And then they're like, yeah. And Tracy's like, yeah.
Let's kill this son of a bitch.
Yeah, they look to Rosario and they're thinking she's going to be a holdout. She's like, no, let's kill this son of a bitch. She's like, yeah, now you're talking. So Zoe grabs this like metal bar from, I guess it was just lying in the bushes or whatever. And
sure.
She's in the car, but she's dangling her leg off the side, and they speed off. And they come to find Mike, and he sees that they're coming. And they ram his car, and he takes off. And then we have this epic chase through the countryside. And at one point, they even get involved with other vehicular traffic and start causing other car accidents, which is going to get them in trouble later. And they start ramming each other. And he's like, "Oh."
Well, and also all practical effects.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just because it's just them ramming the cars at each other. And Mike's like, "Oh, come on, girls! I was just playing and having fun." And they just keep banging for a while. They drive around a lake. They go through the countryside, all over the place, and they keep ramming at him and hitting him. And at one point, they hit him in the arm. And
what is it? What is it that Tracy says? I'm gonna tap that ass. I'm gonna tap that ass. Oh, yeah, you can't get away.
And Rosario and Zoe are like, what do you mean? And they're like, oh, shit. And then she rams off this ramp chasing him, and they bang and get back in the main road, and they speed off. And eventually, Mike thinks he's lost them, but they hit him, and his car actually flips and tumbles a couple times. And he's sitting there just still squealing. The girls get out of the car, and they come over. And he's like, watch out, my arm's broken. And they yank him out of the car anyway, and they just start punching him, taking turns. And there's a lot of freeze frames on Mike's expressions as they do this, until he falls to the ground, and then Rosario just delivers like the death knell with her shoe, just bringing her boot right down on his face.
You know what? There are a few instances in film that I have ever applied so he was brained.
Yeah.
This is one of them.
Yeah, and it ends on a freeze frame, but as the credits are rolling, they keep showing presumably the photos of all the other women that Mike has killed over the years.
I didn't perceive it as such. I thought it was the movie ends with Chick Habit.
Yeah.
The song by
April March.
Thank you. And it's a lot of 1950s advertising, which I thought was interesting, interspersed with the continual beating of Stuntman Mike.
Yeah, well, not that much. They only hit like twice, but then so the credits roll and they keep showing all of this. I saw some really familiar names in the stunt car department. I'm like, that's pretty cool. So the second story, I think, the second half of Death Proof is better than the first half, but
right.
Even some of the dialogue in that instance drags a bit, and I thought it was kind of weird that I kind of really wanted them to go back to, like, what are they going to do after this, like, logically? Are they going to just drive the Charger back and say, like, hey, thanks for the ride, or thanks for letting us borrow your car? I mean, and what will happen to Lee? Are they going to say, well, Lee, I guess you're going to have to go all the way with this guy in order for him to be fine with the car? I mean...
It does feel a little weird what they did to Lee.
Well, callous. That's why I loved that Mike went after him, because that was so evil, and especially from Rosario. It's like, on the one hand, she seems like she's going to be the moral compass because she's the one who puts her foot down and says we're not doing that. But then she's like, oh, but we can do it to Lee, and I'm like,
Hmm.
son of a bitch, you know. So they,
Well, here's a question for you, just in terms of the writing of Death Proof. Like, I think that you and I both enjoy Planet Terror as the trifle that it is.
yeah,
But when we get to Death Proof, when I was watching it, I was thinking, is this good writing for women characters? And
well,
I was like, I don't know if it is, but it is how I want Tarantino women to sound. I don't know. What do you think?
well, from the characters like the Zoe Bell and the Rosario, and when they all go to seek revenge and all that kind of stuff, that's kind of cool. But
Hmm.
the regular dialogue and stuff between the girls in both halves of the story are just kind of boring. It's just them kind of BS. I mean, Zoe was a lot funner and helped inject some life into it, but even then, it just went on. I felt a little too long. Like, it wasn't sharp enough of dialogue to for me to be really worth it. Again, being like, this didn't need to be nearly an hour long. It was a This one was 52 minutes for part two, and it just felt again like it was too long, and it just like it's kind of going on. And again, I thought it just would have been perfect to see what happened to Lee, and the fact that there are a lot of witnesses to this carnage because they crashed into other cars on the road. At one point, they knocked into a motorcycle and sent the motorcyclist flying through like this like fruit stand. So I'm like, they're gonna get busted for this, and I'm kind of wondering where it's going, you know. Uh, but I feel like I would have liked to know a bit more about Stuntman Mike and why he's doing what he's doing, and maybe have a funny anecdote about it, because he's kind of the specter in both stories. He's not really the protagonist. Like, in the first story, the Vanessa actress Butterfly is more or less the main character, and in the second one, Rosario Dawson is more or less the main character. At least I felt, because the story starts kind of from her perspective, and she's the one who notices Mike, just like Vanessa noticed in the first story, except we have a different outcome.
Fair
Uh,
enough.
but Mike, I thought maybe in an alternate universe, he's the same Kurt Russell character from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, who's just gotten older and moved out to pasture or something. I mean, I
Well,
don't.
I did also get sort of that vibe of, is this like Cliff Booth from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood being a stuntman, and then Stuntman Mike? I kind of put them in the same category, and I was like, no, this is different. Like, there's a weird thing from the lore of Quentin Tarantino, is that there are things that happen in the Tarantino verse, and then there are movies that people in the Tarantino verse watch.
Yeah,
Death Proof is one that, like, so Vincent Vega and Jules Winfield would go and see Death Proof.
yeah,
But Pulp Fiction is reality. And
yeah,
that's been a long-standing fandom, I guess.
yeah, yeah. So I just kind of felt that. I mean, this one has kind of a crescendo, and I liked it, but I also felt that, again, the thing with Lee feels like it's hanging a little bit, and it's just too long. Not, I think it needed more. Both halves, I think, needed more Stuntman Mike, and I think both halves get the point across of who these girls are without needing to spend as nearly as much time as they do. So maybe the theatrical cut being 16. I'm surprised, based on what you've been saying, that the theatrical cut would cut the scenes that they cut, because I think there's other dialogue scenes that certainly could have been shortened. But it just, for these two films, I do know a bit about the making of it. Apparently, it was conceived as a Grindhouse from the beginning. It wasn't something that. It's not like they had two scripts that they were working on and figured, let's just combine this. Like, no, they really wanted to make this a proper tribute from the beginning. And I do
Hmm.
know that Robert Rodriguez was deliberately sticking it to Harvey Weinstein by casting Rose McGowan in the film, and
Yeah.
because it was made with Dimension Films, which is run by Bob Weinstein, and he knew that Bob would not let Harvey interfere, which I thought was pretty cool. Even though Harvey did slash the marketing budget for the film because he's a prick. And maybe that's why. Because I remember everybody was talking about this movie when it came out. I was in 2007. Yeah, so it was senior year of high school for me. But it was only in my town for like a few days, and it was gone. So don't know what was going on. It was busy because it was senior year, so it came and went really fast. I don't remember it being. I heard about it actually from I think some friends in class once. Like I wasn't aware that this movie was even coming out, and I wasn't even familiar with what Grindhouse cinema was until I heard about this movie, and then I started researching it. I'm like, wow, this sounds kind of cool. Uh, so it definitely does. Having since seen a lot of genuine Grindhouse films, this definitely does feel like that type of throwback to it. Even though Death Proof aesthetically looks a lot more like a modern film, it doesn't have all the grain and all the flickering and that. Uh, I still admittedly
Well,
think
you and I both watched it on YouTube for free, and there was enough grain.
I watched mine in HD. It was pretty nice, but I feel
Oh
that
well, I'm sorry.
I love the concept of Stuntman Mike as a character and what he does. I just don't feel it's necessarily something that needs to be an hour and 45 minutes long. It didn't feel like
I like the. So when it comes to Death Proof, I think that the structure of the film is unique because it's not a 3-act structure, and yet it
right.
still is. It is a 2-act structure. You get to know characters, you see them killed by our antagonist, and then let's do this again. And you get the new characters, and you know what? They're more likable.
Yeah, and from a screenwriting perspective, I don't know if I would. I mean, yes, he's the antagonist in the first half, but the fact that the other girls I thought were so boring and annoying, it's like, oh, thank you, Stuntman Mike.
But
uh,
you're at the Grindhouse. Trying to kill girls is part of the problem.
yeah, it just. Yeah, I think we would agree that Planet Terror was a lot funner on the whole.
Yeah. Well, okay, but here's the thing. And here's where I have a question.
Yeah,
Um, what is a better car chase? Is it uh, Vanishing Point, which I think is in the top 2 of car chases on film ever? Or is it Zoe Bell like on the bonnet?
it's
That
it's Vanishing Point.
is it Vanishing
Well,
Point?
that's not the top. The best car chase ever that will probably never be topped is the original Gone in 60 Seconds, the Eleanor chase. That goes on for 45 minutes, and it's great because there's no real stunt people in that. A lot of that was real people. At one point, they knocked over a legit streetlight onto a freeway and just kept going because they didn't want to ruin the helicopter shot. It's like, no, just keep going. And they tell the driver, keep going. And at one point, he drives across like a park, and they have some other people. It's completely because here's the thing. They filmed the chase only on Sundays because the permit office was closed on Sundays, and there was a loophole in the law, so you didn't need a permit if you shot on a Sunday when the permit office was closed. So they got away with so much shit in that chase that you would never get away with anymore. And that's why it was arguably, for me, the best car chase ever. And it's 45 minutes long, and it just never lets up for the Eleanor chase. But the Zoe Bell chase, yeah, it's good, but and it's real. Yes, it's real, but I think I would have rather them spent a lot more time on the car chase than on all the crap that precedes it. I guess it's kind of right long enough. But the Vanishing Point is a unique one too because that's the whole movie is a chase in that sense. Even though there's supporting characters who you cut to every once in a while.
Well, don't forget that bitchin' concert in the desert.
Exactly, and then the crazy ending. It's a great film, but I would still put the original Eleanor Chase from the original Gone in 60 Seconds by Toby Helicki as the top.
So would you even put Death Proof in your top 3 car chases?
Let's see. So Helicki, Vanishing Point. Top 3. That's a hard because there's other good ones too. I mean, this is good, but a lot of it is just kind of bumping the cars back and forth. I mean, it is neat that she's actually doing the
Yeah.
The ship smashed is pretty awesome.
Like, let's not forget that there's a chick on the hood.
Yeah, I know, but doesn't make it. I mean, it's fun, but I don't know. It's hard. There's a lot of great car movies back in the day, man, especially in the 70s.
Well, okay, so I'm not going to ask you to commit. I feel like an insurance salesman right now. It's like we'll call your husband later. But what? So
Part
what?
of it,
Like,
there's also a lot of.
would you put this? Do you hold this car chase from Death Proof in high regard?
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I would put it in my top 3. I would put it side by side with Vanishing Point. I have not seen whatever the fucking crazy you were just talking about.
Yeah, you gotta see that. I mean, the first half of the movie is atrocious. Possibly
Clearly.
the worst stuff ever put to cinema for the first half, because basically he wanted to make the biggest car chase ever, but it wasn't long enough to warrant a theatrical release, and he needed it to. So he wrote the first 45 minutes, which is the whole plot of the movie, and stealing cars and the bad acting and the bad dialogue. And so once you might as well, if you haven't, I think it's on YouTube probably free. If you just watch the Eleanor chase, you're good.
I'm pretty sure Vanishing Point is free on YouTube at this point.
Probably. That's a 1971 and gone.
I have the Blu-ray.
Yeah, see, I don't have the Blu-ray. I have the DVD though. And
you fucking pedant! How dare you grace my presence?
And then Gone in 60 Seconds. That's 1974. I have the DVD of that. But yeah, there's I can't put in top 3 yet because there's so many other car chases I have to think about.
Well, maybe anybody in the chat. What are you like? We can go to the chat, and if you guys have any favorite. Sorry, I forgot that there were other people watching. I was just having fun talking to Kat.
We have to agree with the rating or bullets.
Yeah. Well, but here is where things get weird. So, are we gonna do it because you've never seen the theatrical cut? So you are sort of checking that. Well, okay. So we have to put them together. We have to combine them both.
Yeah.
And then judge them as a whole.
I give them as a whole 6 bullets.
I give it 7.
Okay. Because watching them individually, I gave them each 3 stars. They each have their strengths and weaknesses. Even though Planet Terror was a lot funner, it's like because of how disjointed it is, it doesn't feel as much like, and the way the climax kind of comes out of nowhere, it just kind of it has its own weaknesses. Whereas Death Proof also has its benefits.
Well, it is the only movie that I've actually seen a child shoot himself in the face.
Yeah, so I gave each of the films 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, so I give them a 6.
Okay, I'm going with a 7.
All right.
That is Fabu.
All right, let's comments.
Let's go see what other people are saying.
Hungry to dig Tarantino as much as Rodriguez says, monetary bomb, yes, but aesthetic bomb only Scotimus Maximus can say.
Oh, Steve is in control of the comments, so I can't work it.
Loved the theatrical cut. If the Alamo Drafthouse ever says they're going to play it, I'm going. It's a Texas movie theater that plays old movies. So, yeah, it's also, yes, it is in one of the opening shots of Death Proof, but it's also out here in San Francisco. And it's in a few locations, I believe, around the country.
And Jill, I know what the Alamo Drafthouse is, and I'm jealous. Like it's like
Hungry.
I live next door to Disney.
What?
Well, no, you know when you like want to go to a theme park and you can't.
Okay, Hungry 2 says there was fake Grindhouse in San Fran back when he saw Bulletproof in the theater. Honestly, it was just like a theme night that had rickets on itself. That's cool.
Oh, I sound great. Thank you, Jill.
Yeah, you only froze once. Hungry says no choppiness here across the front. Yeah. Those trailers so hilarious. I love them. Jill said, yes, they are hilarious.
Well, and also I would seek out Hobo with a Shotgun.
I especially like the joke in the Machete trailer where the guy's like, "Where's your wife and daughter?" And they're making out with Machete in the pool. Hungry says,
oh no, it's so amazing. Those trailers and the movies that they made, so good. And also, you know what? In my research, something kept popping up. Check out Black Dynamite.
Yeah, that's another recent one from 2009. Hungry to Dig says, the fact that you dig this stuff is hilarious to me, Jill.
Well, Jill is on a mission to watch everything, so.
Yes, and she says that the Rob Zombie directing part was the punchline she wasn't expecting.
With Nicolas Cage as Fu Manchu.
Well, I read that Tarantino shadowed and gave a lot of pointers to Rodriguez in Planet Terror, and Rodriguez shadowed and gave points to Tarantino in Death Proof. So they work together.
Yeah.
Philip Alvarez says, hello. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Phil. I didn't get the notification, but anyway, I'm here. Well, don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell, share, and do all the things that make it so that you find out.
Lucky. He saw it twice in theaters.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, me and Phil are teammates.
The extreme
Uh,
outrageousness of those trailers felt like South Park humor. Good stuff. You feel like it can't be something that someone actually decided to film. Yeah. Uh, yeah.
well, and it's funny because I just recently got a Blu-ray of Tropic Thunder, and so I watched those fake trailers, and that was really funny.
Yeah.
And so with the Grindhouse trailers, I was a little at home.
Yeah. Hungry says, well, exploitation is exemplified by stuff like The Hills Have Eyes uncut. Yeah, that's true. Phil says, where's Machete Kills again? In space.
I know, but that's the third one that they're supposed to do, and I can't wait.
Jill says, Machete, I love that movie. It's one of the few pure action films I like because the action is so out of this world that it was entertaining even without much plot, pure and simple.
Yeah, you know what? I was just disappointed by the lack of nudity.
Hungry.
Hungry 2 says at Jill, oh, trust me, there are films like that people did decide to film. Ozploitation made 3 such films. I love Ozploitation. Jill continues, I never knew it was born from Grindhouse. Well, Ozploitation. Jill goes on.
So much big plot hole, which confused me every time. Yeah, that's true. About the Naveen Andrews character. Yeah.
We never. Oh, okay.
Yes, it was the first fake trailer before the movie. Yeah. Yeah, she was talking about the fact that the Naveen Andrews character always likes to take people's balls and they never say why, and it's very weird. Hungry
It is very weird.
The only film he says this is the only film he can stand Rose McGowan in.
You know what? I want to give big ups to Rose McGowan in this movie because I thought she was absolutely like she was Ellen Ripley. Good.
Yeah, yeah, she was really good. Now, at least in
Like,
Scream, Phil says. Yeah, she was good in Scream as well.
but like I've never been much of a Rose McGowan fan in terms of the actress. I don't. Was she in The Craft?
I don't know.
I don't even. I don't. Yeah, I don't know where she's from. I know her, and I
Hungry
know her.
says, forgive me, man, but I despise the Scream franchise aside from Miss Campbell and Courtney Cox. And I like the Scream franchise, but I don't think anybody's really stellar in it. It's just like, goofball murder mystery. Jill says, yes, that was funny. It was just barbecue sauce, and that whole storyline has the best conclusion. Yeah.
It does when those two brothers are sitting dying side by side, and it's like I'll give you the recipe.
How does she
Take
pull the trigger or not on that machine gun leg? She probably squeezes the muscle in the femur or something like that.
I'm gonna suspend my disbelief to a point that I don't care. I apologize. I think that she uses mind bullets. Is that good enough?
Hungry adores the chili subplot. It's superb. Jill says, yeah, don't give a little kid a gun. What was she thinking? Yeah, that's true.
She wasn't. She had a broken wrist until she didn't.
Yeah.
And then give him all the guns. Well, and that's how he can shoot all of his heads. It was so shocking. Like
I saw that coming the minute she gave him the gun, even on my first viewing a long time ago. Like, yeah, he's done.
Really?
Well, of course.
I didn't think the kid was gonna.
You're not gonna have a little kid playing with his little animals shoot a bunch of zombies. Like, come on.
Yeah, whatever happened to the turtle? That's the big question.
Well, they all made it to the beach happily ever after, apparently.
Hooray! Except for the kid who shot himself in the head.
But the kid was there playing with them, so I guess somehow they made it because plot armor. Jill says, "You need your gas." Yep, that's right. They take the,
Oh, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Wasn't it really callous how the doctor called her in there because it was her friend and he wanted to upset her that way? I was like, oh, guy's such a bastard. Jill says she didn't expect them to kill El Rey. Great ending.
Yeah, I didn't expect that either.
I thought he was gonna become a zombie and she was gonna have to kill him in the cliche way, but I'm surprised he just got shot.
And I think I've seen it a bunch of times, and I forgot that he died.
Yeah, I forget that most times as well.
Spoilers, everyone.
Phil says Planet Terror is definitely the more Grindhouse film than Death Proof was. I agree.
I really have such a high regard for Death Proof just because it is a practical car chase movie. And I like the fact that it is a primarily lady cast. And yeah, I think that in this heightened contrast of people, like I think that Death Proof is pretty fucking woke. Like
Uh,
it is chicks being chicks, and they are being incredible characters. And some of them die, and some of them don't. But like I really enjoy it. I think it's when people bitch about no strong female characters, I'm just like, have you seen Death Proof? That's just my opinion. Am I incorrect? Tell me in the chat.
read on.
Hungry Dingo says, "Yay! Cat is utterly a mega fan of Planet Terror and has detailed analysis, yet mention the plot probs with it. I adore that. You are making my day, Cat." And Hungry like a dingo, I am also having a cat day.
Tarantino as much as Rodriguez, Jill says. I love Tarantino and never saw this before. Oh, cool. First time viewer. Phil says
Yeah,
Phil says he did grow to appreciate Death Proof over the years, simply for the amazing chase scene in Zoe Bell. Oh yeah.
I can't wait to get to the when people say their favorite car chases. I can't wait to see that. Hungry Dingo says, I'm sorry, Hungry, to dig Tarantino as much as Rodriguez. I'm going to call you Hungry Dingo. Thank you. I'll take a risk and say Planet Terror had elements which almost felt like American tribute to Cemetery Man. I'm not familiar with Cemetery Man.
I'm not either. Enlighten us in the chat, Hungry. Jill
Jill
said
goes on. Oh, well, no, you should say this one because you're right.
she says I'm right. The quarantine, the gas, and the disease aren't really well explained, but it was fun to me because of the dialogue, acting, and fun effects. Are there any other biomechanical engineers around here? Biochemical. Yeah, that was funny. I'm so
It
happy.
was just,
Jill is Hungry says.
well, and Jill, come on, man. Like, don't you think that Naveen Andrews would have been the best Khan when they were making
You know, I have to look
Star?
up filmography because I've seen him in other things too, and he is quite good.
Yeah.
But I've not seen
Well, and
Lost
also Khan is Middle Eastern, and so
from India.
I don't know.
Anti-drug
Well, ethnically appropriate. I don't know how you want me to
says
say.
you don't even need the title card to tell you Tarantino made it if you get lots and lots of feet.
So many feet.
Yeah, that's true. Especially the fact that he has stuntman Mike blatantly just go up and lick her feet right in this. It's like, okay, lots of feet. Yes, Phil, lots of feet. Yep.
So weird. But whatever. It's his jam.
Oh, Hungry says he didn't. He noticed the feet thing watching in the cinema and was like, "Huh? What? I didn't know of his footsie thing back then." Yeah.
No, I know. It was the first time that I actually was exposed to the fact that Quentin Tarantino dug feet. And I was just like, why are there so many feet? And so I went to my local BBS and it was like, oh no, Tarantino just digs feet.
Phil
Here's the
says,
script to Pulp Fiction.
yeah, Phil says he watched the extended cut and stuntman Mike actually licked the feet of Mew's character. Yes,
Yeah.
he licked Rosario's
Who's
feet. I don't know what the
what?
MU is though. Hungry says Ferlito rocks. She's been great since too.
You know what? And I was really impressed because I always remembered not enjoying Vanessa's performance. We're not on a first name basis.
I'm not sure where.
But I thought she was really good in this. Like I remember her, like I didn't remember her as fondly as when I saw her performance today and I was like, "Damn, you're good."
Jill says half of Death Proof made her upset because there was no plot, just a bunch of girls trying to score pot. Took a long time for the movie to start, but when it did,
Well, and that's why we get to the best car chase or one of them.
yes, Phil points out that the lap dance is only in the extended cut. That's true. I didn't know that.
Well, and, I came twice, whatever.
That's right. Hungry says that Ferlito went on to play a detective in the NCIS franchise, helping to beat up violent criminals.
Right.
And I think she was also in the first season of CSI New York. Uh, that was another one as well. So she's done a few other things. Yeah.
No, I knew she was in other stuff. I just didn't know specifically. Hey, Stephen Ransom, ahoy to the panel and the chat and the waving and the shaking and the jive. Thank you, sir. Or ma'am. Or what? Hungry Dildo says, wait, that's not right.
Okay, I'm going to say his name from now on because you can't control yourself. Hungry says, yeah, it took quite some time to kick off, Jill. Agreed.
And anti-derivative Jill in the chat says, you're absolutely right, Cat.
Creeps came in and disappeared forever. Kind of pointless to have them at all. Yeah, because you first see Eli Roth. It doesn't show his face at first when he's talking to Vanessa in there for a bit, and then eventually they get to the bar, and I'm like, oh, something's gonna happen here, and nope, it's like forgotten. It's like, oh, let's just have him here because it's Eli Roth, and then they just kind of forgot about it.
Oh, it's nice to see Eli Roth in a you know
Yeah,
what? There are a lot of inglorious bastards in this movie.
that's
Like
true.
you get three, I think.
Yeah, we get Omar
You get
Doom.
Eli Roth, the guy with the umbrella, and then there's someone else.
Uh,
But yeah,
okay, yeah. So Hungry 2 says it's a character acting vehicle for Kurt Russell. Indeed, Scottimus. No apologies for the horrid pun.
oh no, I appreciate the pun and thank you. I am laughing and also crying. Stephen Ransom says, I think it's hysterical that the plot is being criticized. Quentin is filming a tribute to B movies, especially Grindhouse. Pardon me, I have to move my cursor. With the attraction of being so bad it's good. Yeah,
You can still
absolutely,
follow.
Stephen Ransom.
You can still follow the plot of a B movie. Uh, yeah.
I don't think I'm criticizing it. I think I'm wrapping it up as a blanket or a scarf. Like I love Grindhouse. I don't know how much of a boner. I'm not taking off my pants no matter how much you. Phil in the chat says, to question logic in this movie means you don't get it. Shake my head. Phil says, I'm just going to listen now. Cause yeah. Well, you know what? We are launching a new ASMR channel. Stephen Ransom says, cheers to that, Phil. Jill, on the other hand, says, I love questioning everything. I love to question everything. That is my thing. And doesn't mean I'm not enjoying the movie. It's just something I will always do. And you can't stop me. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, that's why we're friends. Hungry Dingo says, the thing with Death Proof versus Planet Terror is that, parentheses, to me and my pals, close parentheses, is that it felt like 60% of the film was just in jokes for people who know facts about the stunt stuff in films. I didn't feel, well, and if that's how you felt, I didn't get that vibe.
Well, yeah, he mentions a lot of legit stuff in the stunt industry that are real, like things that they didn't make up that most of the people in the audience probably wouldn't get.
Well, it's also like Quentin Tarantino doesn't do a lot of audio commentaries or anything like that. And so the analysis of film, yeah, I get it. I understand your frustration with it. Phil is back, and well, not everything can be like Star Trek. And you know what? That's a damn shame. Jill says to Phil, which is just fun to say, I want to hear more about what you think about Star Trek after you have seen the Corbomite maneuver and Mirror, Mirror. He won't watch it. Phil, if you do, I'd love to hear what you have to say. Jill goes on, I've put my feet on the dash, but I keep my socks on, so can't. So calm down, Tarantino. Well, and that's the thing. It's not feet. It's toes. I think he has a toe fetish. Hungry McClunky says at come on, cat. I'm having fun. At Phil, dude, you ain't seen the Cobra Knight mover? You are in for a treat. True story. Not as much as the Horta episode, but a treat.
Phil says, "Yeah, I love that scene where they kept replaying the crash to show how everyone was killed. Brutal stuff."
It was really fucking off the hook. Phil says to Jill and Hungry, it's on my to-do list, only because you asked me to. Well, don't look at it as homework. We're trying to offer you joy. They're offering joy. Kill it.
Hungry tells Phil, "I think you really dig Devil in the Dark, the Horta episode. It's prime and uses tons of horror tropes."
Well, and Phil responds, the first half of Death Proof definitely drags, but once they leave their bar, it picks up in the second half, and it definitely flows better. Yeah, well, that's when one of the best car chases in history happens. Our ticker has stalled. Stephen Ransom says, graduate of 1987, high school, haha, and thank you for your service. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Mixtape, I remember those.
See, Hungry says, "The whole Dodge thing, as a horror fan and huge fan of Phantasm, I wanted a 72 Hemi Cuda, yeah." That would be nice. Steven says, Death Proof is the filming of a bad script by a great and good director.
I disagree.
I mean, I don't say it's a bad script. I think it needs work.
I like it. I love it.
Jill says, yes, exactly. It may even be a script from decades before Quentin even started his career. Perhaps. No, they said that they kind of collaborated on this that it was something they came up with around the time, so I don't know.
I have a crush on this the blonde stunt woman, says Stephen Ransom. That is, she did stunt for Uma. That was Zoe Bell.
Oh, for being the stunt for a lot of Tarantino films. Jill says, or also buy them a tape player. Phil says, the blonde stunt woman is Zoe Bell, who's really a stunt woman. She doubled for Uma and Kill Bill. Yeah.
It sounds like Jill just wants me to buy her a tape player.
Yeah. They've upgraded technology since then. Steven says, when I bought DVDs for my nieces, I purchased a portable player. You know, I remember having portable players and they always sucked. They destroyed the discs because it was always shitty.
But don't you think it would be one of the most romantic things in the world if someone actually made you a mixtape?
A mixtape, yes. He mentioned a portable DVD player. That's different.
Okay.
Yeah, the mixtapes would be awesome.
Do you have a tape player?
Not anymore.
So you would be flattered by someone making you a mixtape.
Guess what, Scotty? You can go online and still buy a tape player. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, but like, let's hang on just two.
What?
Two shakes of a lamb's tail over here. So if I am to make you a tape, like I go through all the effort, I obviously have a tape player with a record button and everything. And I make you a tape and I give it to you as like a romantic gesture. You're going to go to a store and buy a tape player?
I want to hear.
Or are you... Now, if I'm making a proper mixtape, obviously I've handwritten on the inside flap what each side has, right?
Yeah, but you still want to...
Well, I want you to listen to it, yes.
But it's fun to listen to it on the actual tape and that old school quality of... Not high quality necessarily of the old tapes as opposed to just looking them up on YouTube afterwards.
But if I make you a mixtape,
Yeah.
I do have to put the song list on the in the flap.
Yeah, if you remember to do it, yeah.
Well, I'd have to. It's a romantic gesture, lady.
Okay, get to the point.
So you don't even have to get a tape player. You can just read the flap and then look it up on YouTube.
Did you not hear what I just said? It's fun to hear the old school crappy tape quality of what's on the tape.
Welcome to the Grindhouse.
It was the John Hughes. Okay, so Hungry says, something I did dig about Death Proof is that a lot of it seemed like Kurt was relishing a role, which allowed him to kind of shit on the tough cliches of Snake when the film gets to the last 20 minutes.
I thought that this was one of my favorite Kurt Russell performances.
Yeah, I wanted to see a lot more from Stuntman Mike. Unfortunately, there's not much from. Steven says, nice food for the chat, Scotty. The whole tape thing. Thanks.
I do like to feed the ducks.
Feed the ducks. I guess that's what movie well explained. Yeah, thank you, Jill. I guess that's what Stuntman Mike was doing, feeding the duck on his car by crashing it into everybody. Phil says Planet Terror is better because it's so over the top, and while slow at times, Death Proof is Tarantino doing an exploitation film.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. I do too.
Hungry says Pulp Fiction reality. What?
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that Death Proof would be a movie that that Jules and Vince would go and see, but that Pulp Fiction would be the reality.
Well, and that's a thing that like Tarantino himself has said in the regard of the Tarantino verse. And this is part of the reason why I pay attention to Red Apple cigarettes. Because in Planet Terror, El Rey goes into JT's, the Bone Shack, and he gets a cup of coffee and a pack of cigarettes. And what brand? Red Apples. Like, it is part of the same universe. And if it's not part of the same universe, it is sub-universe. And Tarantino himself has said that something like Death Proof and Planet Terror is a movie that, like, Larry from Reservoir Dogs would go see in a cinema.
Yeah, so Phil says this one is hard to score because do you do it as a whole presentation or as separate movies? Yeah, we discussed that. But I ended up giving both movies the same score, 3 out of 5, and so that equates to 6 out of 10. So that was me, and then Scotty gave it a 7.
Mm-hmm.
Steven says Death Proof as an opening band and Planet Terror is the main event. Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like to me. Like I could have Death Proof. I mean, Death Proof, if you start with that, I would be more used to that easing me in because it's kind of starts out a little slow and then you get to the superior second half and then you just build to the crescendo like Planet Terror. It just keeps going up and up. But instead they flipped it around and did it the other way. Which that would be interesting to see recut the theatrical cut in that order and see what people show it to somebody who's never seen it before and see what they think. That would be interesting.
Well, and I think that's part of the reason why the film itself wasn't sort of successful in cinemas. It was for people who wanted it very badly, and the people who wanted it very badly, they got it on the first night. But it is like you get pumped up by Planet Terror, and then it lulls you down for a bit. We don't want to get the audience too excited.
Steven says one of the best car chases is Bullet in the French Connection. Yeah, that's true.
I disagree with both of those.
I think they're good. I wouldn't say they're the best, but I think they're up there. I mean, here's the thing about Bullet. I don't know. Maybe this is controversial. I don't know. I thought that other than the beginning of the car chase in Bullet where they're flying down the hills of San Francisco, once they go north of the Golden Gate Bridge and they end up somewhere which is not even remotely like Sausalito, it kind of resembles a regular car commercial at that point where you just see the cars kind of driving on the, the sweeping camera shots as they're driving on the curved country road. It just kind of, and yes, it is mostly for the real. It's true. It was realistic. French Connection I thought was a good one as well. It's been a while since I've seen that, so I'd have to go back and refresh my memory completely. But the Bullet thing, I felt that the crescendo, if you will, is right at the beginning of that car chase, and then it just kind of peters out. But that's just me.
I don't think that they're, for me, like when I care about uh the guy from Vanishing Point. What's his name? Help me.
Like, yeah, I can't remember the guy's name for Vanishing Point, but yeah.
But I cared about him as a character. Like they did
Right.
show character and everything like that, and it wasn't just his job, it was what he was doing. The life of the man.
Right. It's
And
kind of
so
like,
that's why I felt the emotion of that car chase. And the same thing with this, with a bunch of girls who want to go have fun on a car.
right. It's because it's like in Bullet, the first 45 minutes of the movie, he's driving a brown station wagon, and then he suddenly conveniently switches to the green '68 Mustang for the car chase, and that's the only time you see it. And people are like, "Oh, it's the most famous cinema car in history." I'm like, "Is it?" It's just like it's not even that character's car for other than that one scene in the movie, and so yeah, but that's a whole other conversation for another time.
Well, it's just a matter of stakes when it comes to the car
Right?
chase.
Yeah, you need the stakes there. You need to care. I agree.
And I don't think that Bullet or
You know, one that I
the
really
French
liked.
Connection
I
do.
liked the car chase from the climax of the Bourne Supremacy with Kirill and Jason driving through the streets of Russia or
Never seen it.
or wherever they are. I thought that was pretty good. All right, so
You know what? My favorite car chase is the tank in GoldenEye.
well, it's not a car. Oh, I guess it is. It's a part of a car chase. Yeah, it's pretty good. Uh,
Moving on.
that for real. Yeah.
Well,
Hold on. Ronin and To Live and Die in L.A. Also great car chases.
Ronin is a great one, dude. That is a great call.
Are we talking about the original or the remake?
The
Ronin?
remake, I believe.
Remake. Yeah, Ronin. Okay, yeah, the '98 one. Yeah, that's true. It's been a while since I've seen that one.
And the To Live and Die in L.A. car chase is pretty badass.
Ronin is definitely top 5.
And if Rob is watching, I'm sorry I've not seen To Live and Die in L.A. Despite it even talking about it ad nauseum on his channel.
Bullet and French Connection are also in my top.
Yeah, I don't like those.
Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
That's right. That's the
Eh,
big chase. Is a good one.
Gone
Yeah.
in 50 Seconds.
Yeah, the original. That's what I put as the top best car chase of all time. The original.
I haven't seen it.
And you said the Bourne Supremacy. The Bourne Identity has a pretty good car chase too. I don't know if it's top 10, but it's close.
Yeah.
And I think what else?
Oh, what about Matrix
this one
Reloaded?
probably a lot of people won't
Yeah.
kind of think about. But I thought the Matrix Reloaded had pretty good fucking car chase.
I
Yeah,
just said that, you monkey.
You
You
did.
did?
That
I
one
didn't hear you. Sorry.
That one, I thought the emphasis is more on the fighting than it is on the fact that the cars are speeding down the freeway and they use the wire work to blast the cars and that kind of thing. So it looked a bit, it was a bit more, staged, if you will. It wasn't as,
Yeah.
yeah.
And yes, it does definitely
Great
feel
action.
staged,
No.
but it's a great action scene.
No doubt.
And one of the best, some of the best car stuff is in Baby Driver too. And I think that's because of the music.
Well, that's the only
shot.
time I get to touch myself while watching Kevin Spacey. So thank you. Yes, I do enjoy
Uh,
that movie.
Anyways, sorry to interrupt. There's
That's right.
some really good car.
But I'm glad you brought those up, Steve, because it's good to,
Baby Driver is a great movie.
car chase as well.
You know who's in Baby Driver?
Hmm.
John Hamm.
John Hamm.
Yes, he is. John Hamhock. All right, let's get back to it.
Jill continues in the chat. You know what? For what it's supposed to be, I agree. It's an 8. Just for the trailers, and I love Planet Terror and half of Death Proof. I thought it had too much tedium.
Agreed. That is the way to sum that one up for me. Yeah.
Going on.
That she still likes Scotty's idea that the slowness of Death Proof was part of the symphony, but if I wasn't watching it for this review, I probably would have turned it off before it got going. Ooh, interesting.
Well, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
I actually watched it on my cell phone sitting outside in the front yard today.
Did you get a tan?
No. It was
Oh.
just nice weather outside. Cam says phone died. I had to switch to Chromebook and feed the cat.
Well, it's good to see you, Cam. Thank you for being here. And hopefully, comment.
Hungry says toy car versus Clint Eastwood on San Fran streets in Deadpool. Best car chase.
That is actually a really good call, yo.
It is pretty good.
The Dead.
That's a fucking awesome car chase.
I like that. I like that movie. That's a good movie. It's kind of unsung Eastwood.
It is my favorite Liam Neeson movie.
Top
Phil says
five.
top 5 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hungry, you always appreciate the more innate and artistic thought processes, Jill. Oh, that's a nice thing to say, Jill. Hungry's that was Hungry's comment. Let's see any more in there. You're thinking of Charmed, Scotty, says Phil.
With Rose McGowan, yes. Mind bullets, says Jill. Yes, it's good enough because it made me laugh, Scotty. Thank you. Well, then, please, reload. More mind bullets.
Is that the Tenacious D reference, or did I just not hear the reference?
I don't even know what I was talking about, but of course
okay.
I ripped it off from Tenacious D. Thank you for calling me
bullets.
out. How does that grab you?
Jill says diversity isn't woke. It's great. If it were woke, it'd be boring because the women would be more awful. Yet applauded for it, and Kurt Russell would have been dismantled sooner with little to no fanfare. That is true.
It is true.
Yeah.
Hungry
What-
says Jill said it, but yes, 100%. Mary Elizabeth.
Oh, Mew. That means Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I didn't know.
Well, like he was talking when he mentioned that he was talking about. Wasn't he talking about the Rosario Dawson character because he licks her feet? That was.
No, but Mary Elizabeth Winstead is singing in the driver's seat like she has a.
Jill says yes. Scotty would be a better con for the non-Trek, not Star Trek films, better than Benedict Cumberbatch. Oh yeah, easily.
Yeah, I think that Naveen Andrews would have been an amazing con.
Hungry says, well, thank you, Kat. Scotty is dipping my hair in the inkwell.
I am hungry for monkeys.
Hungry says, ha, Kat just slayed me. You can go online and buy.
Hey, Tom Jr. Jackson, you son of a bitch.
Great flicks and excellent show with expert Kat on breaking down the film. Scott, mixtapes, really? Meet me at camera 2, pally. Mixtapes.
It's lovely to see you, sir.
You
Thank
can't
you so
deny
much.
that an actual mixtape played on an old school tape recorder has a particular type of sound to it that feels very.
I agree.
Yeah, that's why you can't just look it up on YouTube. Cam says,
mixtapes in my day.
yeah, Cam says if you make a mixtape, you have to give it to her in a tape player. French Connection is better than Bullet, though I love Steve McQueen and that green Mustang more. I have one of those green Mustangs in my garage, actually.
I love Steve McQueen in The Great Escape. And when I saw Bullet, I was like, Steve McQueen, why are you being boring?
Well, that's actually one of the most realistic cop films ever made. Maybe that's why it's boring to some people. Jill says, I'm not just big on car chases. Mad Max?
Man.
Yeah.
Mad Max. I don't know why I didn't think of that. Yes, Mad Max. That's because they did a lot of that for real as well. Tom
Which
says,
Mad Max?
well, all of them, really. Tom says, the scene where the car peels out on the girl's face, standout scene in Death Proof for me. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. That was the one that I was blown away by because I thought I was gonna get freaked out when Marley Shelton breaks her wrist because that always grosses me out. But then when I saw Vanessa Ferlito get her face ripped off by the tire, I was just like, oh, that's too much.
Yeah. Oh, yes, a Steve.
Hi, Cam. And that'll do it for the chat for tonight. And then we're about a minute and a half away from the 2-hour mark.
Well, then we should probably wrap up. And, well, first things first, Kat, do you have anything that you... Well, no, I guess... So I did 7, you did 6, Steve did 6. Do you have anything that you would like to promote this evening?
Really? Oh, we're on the our show, the Unifying Force this Sunday, 8 a.m. Pacific on Virtual Cantina Network. We're going to talk about the Curse of the Threequel in a lot of that we see in a lot of franchises. Last time we talked about sequels that are better than their originals, not just Star Wars. We talked about all kinds of sequels, and that was a fun episode. So we'll be doing Curse of the Threequel this Sunday.
That sounds great.
Dissecting why that happens and if it can be broken.
And where can we find that?
That is on the Virtual Cantina Network. It's the name of the YouTube channel, and it's 8 a.m. Pacific live stream. Cam says he just got a Blu-ray of Steve McQueen's greatest movies. Ooh, which ones? Oh, Hungry says, good night, folks. Fab host, fab chat, decent films.
Steven, do you have anything that you'd like to promote? Do you have a book or anything?
No, my latest book is The Fallen on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon.
That's The Fallen
The
by
Fallen
Stephen Foley.
by Steve Foley. Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, check that out if you'd like. It's a cool little short story. It's a short story I actually wrote for a contest on another network that didn't actually happen. So I decided to go ahead and publish that myself. Anyway,
Nice.
Thanks for coming tonight.
Wait, I have stuff to promote.
Very, very exciting chat.
So
Thanks
what do you
to Tom and Cam and Antiderivative Jill and everybody else in the chat that I missed. Hungry.
Oh, what are we
Cinema
doing?
Gulp.
What are we promoting next week?
Is Cinema Gulp here? I didn't see him today. But
No, he's not here, but he's a great supporter of the channel, and I want to give.
What were you going to promote, Scott?
I was just going to say that. I was just going to lead right into it. I was going to ignore him on purpose for a while and then say, "Oh, what do you have to promote?"
You know what? I forget.
What are we doing next week?
Sorry?
What are we doing next week?
Well, next week, oh my God. Kat, that is a pop quiz. We will return next week. Is next week Destiny Turns on the Radio?
It is not.
What is it, Steve?
Give me 1 second. I'll let you know. I can't remember.
No, I can look.
I have to actually.
No, it's my fault. It's my fault. We should actually be promoting.
It is.
Are we promoting anything? We're not this show.
Yeah, this is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is next Wednesday.
Oh, my stars.
Okay.
I am so excited to watch this movie. And I know that I made promises in the past that I would be finished reading the novelization before we did this movie. I will not. But yeah, next week is probably one of my favorite movies. Top 5 of all time.
Oh, wow. Great straight loved it. Thank you, Jill.
Thanks, Jill. The Fallen, Amazon?
Yeah, Steve novel. Check it out. By Stephen Foley. Let's look that up.
Oh, yes. Totes. Yes. Night, Jill, says Cam. Anyway, are we done? Can we get a taco or what?
Yeah, we can go get a taco.
Let's go get a taco.
Let's.